What's happening, y'all? So we're gonna be talking about Antarctica today, man. As we all know, they've been hiding some shit about Antarctica for the longest time, man. Ever since I can remember. You know, now it's 2020, it's about to be 2025, and a lot of information is coming out. A lot of documents are being declassified. A lot of whistleblowers are coming out, um, saying what they did and what they saw. And of course, we got social media, man. They can't control social media like they used to, People are doing their own research, people are posting their own videos, and people are finding out information for themselves instead of watching the news, man. You can't get your information from the news anymore, unfortunately. But check this out, man. This video is all about Antarctica and the truth about Antarctica, what's being found out there, what kind of operations are going on out there, and some of the things that have happened that certain people want to keep quiet. All right, I'm not going to do too much talking in the intro of this video. Let's just get straight into these clips and find out, man. This shit is crazy. Check this out.
What are you blowing the whistle on?
That there are technologies at the South Pole Station that people can't even consider that exist on this planet. Directed energy weapon systems is something that people need to get in their vocabulary fast. The ice cube neutrino detector is not simply a passive listening device as presented for the science that they're claiming it to do. It also has the capacity to transmit. There are embedded in the ice what are called digital optical modules, DOMs. They're about the size of a basketball. The array embedded in the ice is 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer. It is the world's largest telescope. And now, because we have proven that it can transmit, it's the world's largest directed energy weapons system. It is responsible for the earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand.
Could you speak a little bit more about what you know of what's going on in Antarctica?
I've recently met with 4 of the scientists that were part of that expedition many expeditions in the past few years in Costa Rica recently. And what was interesting is there's also another craft that is part of some of the craft that's down there in a cave down near Costa Rica, I'll say.
Oh, wow.
And so this group was asking me to come with them to Antarctica to, check it out. And on another expedition, which I refrained to go because all newbies don't return.
Really?
So that's how dangerous it is. And any people that go down there to do documentaries or, try to get with people to take them down there, usually end up pretty much not coming back.
Wow.
So right now, if you don't have a specific, really good classification, you're not going down there. So that doesn't leave it open to satellites, however, and special drones that we have access to find out more information. Different organizations are funding this, private organizations, because people want to know. And so this information was given to me, strictly from the 4 scientists that actually came from working there for 2 years, which they do have the access to get back down in there to do what they do, which is basically what I was talking about, mapping and measuring the melting ice and how much time they have before this other things are exposed, which lead to the exposure of the underground city that's there, that has been there for a very long time, apparently.
Are you familiar with there being any plan to reveal ancient ruins under the ice in Antarctica, but not spacecraft at first or anything more modern, as part of a gradual disclosure agenda?
They already started that, so they're saying there's something down there, a big void. Just like they did in Egypt now, there's a big void. Underneath the pyramids there, we have a very, very large city that's there.
In Egypt?
In Egypt, under the pyramids, about a mile-high dome.
Really?
Yes, very large. So this is the same thing that's going on in Antarctica. So they're slowly saying, wow, through satellite imagery with special ground-penetrating radar, certain scientists which have nothing to do with trying to find bases, by the way, more like trying to find oil reservoirs and gold, have stumbled upon these giant voids. So you're going to start hearing about this. These voids are the ancient cities. These are the ones that have been here for a very long time. This is right up your alley with all the stuff that you talk about. And there has been great camera footage taken from an archaeologist that we know, and we have seen this footage, and it is compelling because the camera they snaked down under the pyramid to see this when it first was discovered, which I cannot disclose, was just fascinating. So the same thing is going on in Antarctica now, is how are we going to disclose this and clean up all the artifacts down there, which will really mess up the story of how we got here.
Right.
Kind of like Mars and the moon and everything else. And it's right here on this planet.
Wow.
Anybody who wants to know about Antarctica, consider a couple of facts. That treaty, there's not one nation in the world that says, no, we want to explore Antarctica. The biggest military expedition in the history of the world was funded, and Admiral Byrd was the top man. But then he ends up getting
Admiral
a radio
Byrd.
signal, but it's not.
You guys haven't heard of his
from the
story, go
command
check it
center.
out, man. He's got a very
It
interesting
is
story.
from an unidentified being. He also ends up seeing two UFOs that are not using any understood means of propulsion.
That's a good point.
See, my surrogate mother was Viola Armstrong. She had a son named Neil. Oh, really? As you know, the story goes, he went down to Antarctica, had a heart attack, stroke combo, and came back. And
That's one
then
hell
there
of
was
a
stuff on the
combo.
internet. And I had to look at Bud and ask him, Bud, what happened down there, Bud? Bud did say one thing, and it just stuck in my head. It's the way he said it. He just said, we thought out things we shouldn't. And if Buzz saw something, and I don't know what it was, but it was enough to give the man a heart attack. So if there are beings down there, I would think these beings never planned on us. They've been there, they came in millions of years ago. They've been under ice for millions of years. I don't think they were expecting us.
Let me ask the thing about Buzz Aldrin, that there was this very cryptic tweet that came out during his stay down there. He said, "We have seen the faces of evil, and we're all in danger." Right. And this is right before he had his heart
tweet.
attack. And I can tell you, logistically,
It got
to do
deleted
a
like a
medical
day later.
evacuation from the interior of Antarctica is very difficult and very expensive. So something must have majorly gone wrong.
To underscore the fact that when the C-130 crew had dropped them off, they disappeared. And then when they went to try to find them, there was nothing at the National Science Foundation camp at all. Nothing.
They were
moving.
gone.
They
A
were
dozen
totally
scientists.
gone. And when they did show up, they had been missing for a couple of weeks. And Brian S. and the
Where'd they go?
C-130 flight crew were then sent back. And they were expecting that they would see this group of scientists out to meet their plane, doing this, yelling something. And he said they were lined up like birds on a wire. They were all kind of next to each other, and most of them had their heads down, looking at their feet when the C-130 was pulling up. And that somebody had to go from the flight crew over to the scientists and direct them to get onto the plane. And they talked about how not one single scientist said one word. Most of them walked with their looking down at the ground. Brian said when they got them loaded up, he said to his flight chief,
Probably damn near
"What
frightened
in
to
the
death."
world? Where have they been?" And the flight chief said, "I don't know. We
Whatever
can't
they
get a word
saw.
out of them." And during the flight, Brian went and sat down next to one of the scientists, and he said he leaned over and touched the scientist's knee, and the man never looked up. And he said, it was as if we were dealing with 12 or 15 people who had suffered post-traumatic shock syndrome, that they were unnaturally frozen in their position and no speaking, and that they all looked afraid. That one of the SEALs that I have talked to that is not in the video said that as they
SEALs too?
walked for
Form
a
of
mile
PTSD.
or 2 miles into these very strange created architectures, they reached a point where something started coming through the walls out into the air. At first, it would go in and out of visibility, and then they realized that their minds were being manipulated, And then when they could see it clearly, and it was coming in and out like a television signal in the air, it appeared to be covered with scales, like an armadillo, the surface of an armadillo.
Like a fucking reptilian?
He said, when you are face to face with something like that and you are trained in military to kill, but you're dealing with something you've never seen and it can go in and out of visibility, and you know that your mind is being taken over by something that you are fighting. He said that happened in one of those corridors, and that was 2012.
The Atmospheric Research Observatory is in what we call the clean air sector. I witnessed myself a very powerful green laser shooting out of the top of this facility into the cosmos. This, I believe, is a secondary form of long-range communications and or a defense system. I am not saying that we need to be scared of anything that's out there, but please understand the military-industrial complex is happy to invest all of your money in alleviating their fears. A question of power comes
That's
into
the
play
real
for all
Illuminati,
of these
by the
facilities
way.
that are present. I assure you, I knew what was going on, I knew the load demands of the facility, and all of these new items exceed the demand for the systems that I was presented. I am doing due diligence and research. I believe there is either a secondary power supply there that is either nuclear, that was there prior to the start of the Antarctic Treaty, which prohibits such things, and or that there is some sort of exotic power supply system there that just is not in the verbiage of the treaty, so it negates the responsibility to the parties involved.
The number one place in the world for technology research is right down there in Antarctica. I believe that as the ice is melting, they're finding remnants of an ancient civilization. We know that Antarctica was not a frozen tundra. Mainstream science says 12 million years to build up all this ice. No, that's not accurate. We know this because of the Perry-Reese map. The Perry-Reese map shows Antarctica what it looked like without ice on it, and that's not even that old. So we know that Antarctica shifted into that spot. How? Because we know that Antarctica is surrounded by tectonic plates. And so that landmass was on a plate that slipped. There was something called a pole shift of the crust of the Earth, which shifted it from a more habitable climate into the position it is now. And that's why the animals that are being uncovered from the ice were flash frozen with undigested food in their stomachs. And there's an entire advanced civilization there, including some of the largest pyramids on Earth, right in Antarctica.
From the History Channel.
In October of 2020, a sharp-eyed investigator scans satellite images of Antarctica and comes across a site that stops author Brad Olson in his digital tracks. It's a metallic-looking object, half covered in ice. Look closer. It sure seems to be a raised disc casting a shadow onto the ice. Olson thinks that as the ice melts, an alien spacecraft has emerged from where it was left thousands of years ago. But what alien would park their ride in such a hostile place?
Antarctica and Mars are both extremely sterile environments. If I were a Martian and I wanted to choose a place on Earth to live, Antarctica, it'd be the closest thing to home I could find.
Now, was it from the past or is it from the present?
Have you personally ever met one of these species from the underground?
Yes, I've been down twice.
And what did they look like, and what kind of race were they?
I actually met raptors, the subterranean indigenous reptoids on planet Earth who are from here. They developed here, they evolved here, and they've been living underground for a very, very long time. So a reptoid is a term to describe any general species of a reptilian origin. When we talk about the raptors, we're talking about a specific indigenous terrestrial species that is evolved from dinosaurs and essentially went subterranean a very, very long time ago. So they tend to have longer, thinner legs. They tend to have a long curved neck with a longer snout. I wouldn't go so far to say as that they're friendly. I would go so far as to say that they're not hostile, but people are given sort of general warnings to not wander into their territory because you might end up food if you run into the wrong group of people. We definitely have an interactive relationship with them and a participating, cooperative relationship in bringing balance to the surface. So their main concern is as we imbalance what's happening on the surface, that threatens the planet as a whole. Now, their subterranean civilizations will survive regardless, but they have an interest in whether or not the surface world is healthy or not. And so the worse it gets, the more they kind of, have to communicate to us, you can't just destroy life on the surface. You need to fix that, or we'll take some action.
So could it be that they are possibly living underground in Antarctica? Another theory is that the North Pole and the South Pole are strictly prohibited for any person to go because it's a gateway to the center of the Earth where the aliens apparently live. I've always believed that there's life in the center of the Earth. Originally, I thought it was underwater life. Now I'm thinking it could be the reptilians. What do you guys think?
But there's an opening there that you can see on Google Earth. It's about a 30-meter wide opening in Antarctica. Now, when you look at this opening, there's a base. There's a lot of bases around the opening. Each base has a name, and the names are the countries of the planet Earth. They have their own base down there. They're doing a collaborative research of whatever is in this hole. Now, behind that hole, about maybe 15 to 30 miles, there's a gigantic pyramid off in the distance.
Wow.
And the pyramid is there. You can see the complete apex of it. It's been
Pyramids
on the History Channel. It's been on Ancient Aliens. It's a famous pyramid. It's been there. But it's massive, much bigger than the one in Egypt. Much bigger.
How did they build it out there with no sand?
Well, what's interesting is you look at Antarctica and you realize it's not from that location on the planet Earth. Antarctica, that continent itself, shifted into that position due to a pole shift of the crust of the Earth itself. So the tectonic plates have sometimes slipped, and that continent moved into that position at a very rapid pace. And you know what the scientific evidence is? The scientific evidence is, as we begin to dig out the animals from the melting ice due to global warming, they dissect them right away. They have undigested food in their stomachs.
What?
Which means that they were flash frozen.
In 2010, I was selected to go down to the South Pole Station in Antarctica for an entire year by Raytheon Polar Services as an employee of a third-party contractor for the National Science Foundation. I function in a dual-role capacity as a tradesman and a firefighter. My responsibilities required me to be more informed than most of my crew and offered me complete access to the facilities. What I learned from this unique experience needs to be shared with the entire world. The technology at the South Pole Station certainly can do what it is presented as its primary purposes, and unfortunately, much more. The Ice Cube Neutrino Detector is presented as a passive listening device for the purposes of the science as presented, but I'm going to skip right through the chase, folks. I have provided documentation that proves that the 5,160, what they call DOMs, that are embedded in the ice can actually transmit at 2,047 volts each. That gives us a long list of things to consider. It is effectively a multifaceted directed energy weapons platform that I will list rapidly a few things that it can do. Vehicle detection. We're learning that these off-world craft, on-world craft, ours or other nations, are also emitting neutrinos. So this makes the South Pole Station effectively an air traffic control station for this new level of equipment that nobody's discussing.
That shit's crazy, right? I apologize though, man. Check out this last clip I forgot to throw in there. This shit is crazy too, man. This technology he's talking about. Check this out.
What other kind of things can this...
Oh boy, voice-to-skull technology. This is also in the foray of directed energy weapons.
What is that?
The ability to, let's just say, throw your voice into your head, or my voice into my head, or allowing algorithms that now they can blanket a whole geographical area and they can make everybody change their thoughts. They can, I use the term intrusive thoughts. Back to that fork in the road analogy. If you find yourself where you have to make a decision about something, next thing you catch yourself having an argument in your head with your own voices. Well, the ability to add another one of your voices in there, but have it controlled by somebody else's microphone, say, is a very powerful tool. And I think this is a weapon of war that we are seeing happen to everyone around us. The Department of Defense recently started initiating protocols for their employees, their agents, to discuss Havana syndrome-like symptoms. And on that list is that their agents are hearing voices in their head. And this is what they're getting at. This is that technology. that next thing you're trying to make a decision, but there's another Sean in your head that now is actually somebody else's control, and through the manipulation of that voice, they can now push you, just like we have cell phones are weaponized now, the social media platforms, and they can engage with an algorithm, and they know that they can push you in a direction by repetitive information being displayed in front of you, similar to the tachistoscope in grammar school, that they can learn your system and they can learn to manipulate it on a personalized level by just assessing you, what the things are that you're interested in, what are your weak points, what's the crack in the dam, what's the angle of attack. And it's through repetition and access. These are simply electromagnetic impulses in your head. It's not that they can't be read, it's not that they can't be copied, and it's not that they can't be just replayed with somebody else's control. I could get a voice changing thing and I could sound like you if I wanted to. I could call you on the phone, I could call your loved ones, and I could pretend I'm Sean. They can do that for you in your own head.
Now, call me crazy if you want to, but check this out, guys. You guys remember when all those mass shootings was happening, right? The churches were getting shot up. Schools were getting shot up, man. It seemed like every other day there was a mass shooting, right? And if you guys remember, or if you guys did your research, I should say, I would say about 80% of the people that committed these crimes, these mass shootings, these church shootings, these school shootings, all these different mass shootings, when they were asked in court or by their lawyer or whatever they put on documents, what their reason was behind, you know, them committing these heinous acts of violence, 85-90% of the time they would say, there was voices in my head telling me to do it. You know, I heard voices in my head. These voices in my head wouldn't stop until I actually committed these crimes. And that made me think, man, when I watched this last clip, I'm like, you know, maybe I'm putting pieces of the puzzle together that aren't supposed to be put together, or maybe I've been smoking too much California green. I don't know, man. But when I watched that clip, it just made me think, you know, about all those instances where the suspects, after they got caught and asked, you know, why did you do this? Majority of them said, you know, there was voices in my head. And when I watched that last clip, it made me think like, what was this all like some type of government experiment to see if their new technology actually worked? You know what I mean? It just makes you think a little bit, because I mean, you guys go do your own research and see I'm not bullshitting you. You know what I mean? Just go back and look at all the people that committed all these mass shootings or anything like that, and majority of them say they heard voices in their head. You know, so that just makes you think, man. Tell me what you guys think about all this. You know, all this stuff coming out about the Antarctica, man. You know, as time goes on, there's going to be more and more information coming out, and I'll for sure make another video when it does, man. But for now, man, the shit that's coming out now, all the shit that's being declassified, all these whistleblowers that are coming out and telling their story, this shit is crazy, man. What they're trying to hide, they can no longer hide. You know what I'm saying? The truth is coming out, man. The people are waking up. You know, thanks to social media, you know what I mean? Nobody's watching the news no more, man. You can't watch the news to get your information no more. Or if you do, you ain't going to get the full truth. You're only going to get half the story, you know what I'm saying? Hey, do me a favor. If you guys watch this whole video, go ahead and smash that like button for me, man. I'm going to catch you guys on the next video.